Say it's the hood CNN, your favorite hood reporter, the prime minister of hood education, Dr. Monroe. Well, I got a PhD in common sense, and I'm a five-star general. I want to say top of the afternoon to you. Hopefully you had a good Thanksgiving and kind of kicking back. I want to go over a couple things with you. First thing is Nate got knocked out last night. Sometimes you got to stay in your lane. And Nate Robinson learned last night that boxing ain't his lane. Man, I really thought the dude was dead. Man. I really thought Nate Robinson was dead last night. When they're playing with that dude, man, that dude do that for real, man. Even though he didn't have two fights, he trained as a boxer, Nate. You good at basketball. You're good at being a three-time slam dunk champion. And boxing ain't your thing, Nate. But that's a prime example of somebody getting outside their lane, trying to do something else. I want to thank everybody for the love that I've been getting in regards to running for school board. My man Art Smith went to war yesterday, tried to get me on a live. I'm coming from out of town, and see if I can stop by his house and do a live. A lot of good people that endorsed me early in the game, and that's good, man, because they know they ain't endorsing me because my name Gary Monroe. They endorse me because they know I do the work. A lot of people will say, well, Monroe's not the perfect candidate, and I thought about that, and I've heard myself say that I'm not the perfect candidate, and I went back and I thought, I say, nah, I am the perfect candidate. The perfect candidate for a lot of reasons. Perfect candidate because when I lost my race 4 years ago, I didn't stop working. I actually worked harder for the kids. I clearly understand education law. I understand the Texas education codes. You feel what I'm saying? So, no doubt, Janelle, the nickel and the trade, Art Schmidt, Gary Monroe, I remember that they had wrongfully tased Art. The HPD had tased him. And I was laying on the couch. My back was hurting. My back had went out then a few years ago. And, I went out there and they took Art to jail. And Art was in there like 15 days. Nobody standing up for him. He didn't do anything wrong. So I went and I did what I did, man. And they let Art out of jail. But we had been partners long before that, fighting for the kids. He fighting for Wheatley. I'm fighting for Yates. So am I the perfect candidate? I think I am. I'm the perfect candidate because I fight for children. I fight for quality education for all children. Perfect candidates, they leave it on the floor. It's not about, how they say it is what they saying and getting the job done. And when I thought about everything that I did in them 4 years, I mean, Art kind of brought it to light that, you had black schools that didn't have libraries. And I went to war. And all of a sudden you had three predominantly African American schools get state of the art libraries. Back when our police department for the school district was ranked, I think, about 13th or 14th lowest paid out of all police departments, whether school, city, county, whatever. I went in there and fought for them, and they ended up getting millions and millions of dollars in bonus money, and they did what they needed to do for them people, man. I definitely fought for teacher raises. I mean, if somebody want me to say I'm not a perfect candidate because you don't like my delivery, then you clearly don't understand what's wrong with education. And that brings me to where I'm at. Hey, good afternoon to all of y'all. I started thinking as I was driving, and I'm stuck in traffic, so that's cool. Um, and I was thinking about virtual education. This is how a perfect candidate thinks, and it just hit me. The higher power tells me everything I need to know, guides me to where I need to go, and virtual learning is not the problem. That's not the reason that the kids are failing because of virtual learning. And you teachers, I need you to listen to me. Administrators, listen to me. Superintendents that watch me, listen to me. Somebody been cooking the books, man, in education. Because switching to virtual, you just gotta have the time to do your work. And the reason I say that is because I go to school virtually. Hold on. I go to school virtually. And I clearly know that if I don't have the time to devote to my studies and do my work, then I'm gonna be looking horribly in school too. But it leads me to something I've always thought about with black high school football coaches. For years, Yates, Madison, Worthen, Booker T, the Smileys, the Forrest Brooks, they had some of the best football players that you've ever seen to come through them schools, man. Cashmere, Hampton and Scales, man. Peanut at Booker T. I mean, you had Jeffrey Phillips, over at Sterling, Jeffrey Murray at Sterling, the Bushes, Darrell Bush at Madison, the Giles brothers at Madison. So what I'm saying is the way education and virtual learning is, it reminds me of football coaches in the black schools. Because for a lot of years you could camouflage the fact that black coaches realistically could not coach because they had all the talent. And then when they started opening up more suburban schools, you know, uh, building these new schools and these new communities, they started losing their talent. And then all of a sudden, the white coaches could, X's and O's them out of the game. They could kill them because not only did they have the best talent now, they actually knew how to coach. Now, with virtual learning, it makes me think the same thing. That some of you teachers have been cooking the books. Some of y'all have been cooking the books. And what I mean by that is some of y'all really don't know how to teach. I'm be honest. I'm just telling you what I feel in my heart. And because across the country, it's no way that all of these kids are not grabbing virtual. And you're right, Frederica Sam August, because we've not prepared our kids to go to school virtually. So therefore, you threw them in the sub. You just threw them in the. You're trying to teach them how to swim, but you threw them in the deep end. You didn't start them off in the baby pool of the 3 feet. You threw them in the deep end. So it's a lot of different components. But the question is where is the educational component now throughout the country? Where is the educational component now throughout the country? Sometimes it just takes something catastrophic to happen to switch up the whole educational component. I know the Houston Independent School District has lost a lot of kids to charter schools. So let me ask you a question. We stay on the route we on where the kids are failing, they're not doing good. The average parent who wants the best education for their child may end up pulling their child and sending them to a charter school. And maybe that's exactly what these folk want. Maybe that's exactly what these folks want, to be able to send these kids to these charter schools and, you know, turn a lot of these schools into charters. I believe in my heart that kids don't fail. We fail these kids. We we actually we actually fail these kids. That's what we do. And hold on a second, y'all. We actually fail these kids. And I just don't understand how people can be comfortable allowing children to fail for their own self gain. So here's the thing. Um, but see, that's what I was saying, Frederica. Let's get past the fact that they threw the kids in the deep end. Bottom line, if a teacher cannot teach and is exposed that they cannot teach, then that tells me you've been cooking the books. And let's go to the upper level kids. I mean, as far as grades and different things. Um, scoring high and all that stuff. How some of these honor roll kids, how some of these kids that make the highest grades and the highest scores, how are they flunking virtually? Because in some of these schools, y'all were cooking the books. You were cooking the books. These kids were not earning the grades that they earned. That some of these schools wanted to sit at the top levels, and people were willing to do anything to make sure that they did sit at the top levels. And it is what it is. I think that we need to pay real special attention to our educational component. Now, let's just talk about the run for a second. I'm gonna touch on a few other things. Art made a hell of a statement. If you haven't seen his post, go to Arthur J. Schmidt and look at what he put up yesterday about me, which I really appreciated. At the Houston Independent School District, the Board of Trustees have a very crucial decision to make in District 9 because they have to appoint somebody for Wanda Adams' seat. And he said, well, if you don't appoint Gary Monroe, then that tells us you don't even know how to pick the most qualified person to put in that seat. So if we trust you to blow that one, how could you pick a qualified superintendent if you did a search? That is one of the most realest statements that I've ever heard. No slight to anybody that decides to throw their name in the hat to be appointed. No slight to anybody that decides they want to run for the District 9 seat. But at the end of the day, you people have not done the work. You've not done the work. You don't understand education. You don't know the job of a trustee, and to put anybody in that seat is a slap in the face to every kid in District 9. You know how many calls I get from principals back when school was just school? And they like, Monroe, I'm mad at you. I'm like, why, Madam Principal? Um, because every time I try to check little Johnny, he say, well, if you handle me wrong, I'm gonna call Gary Monroe. He goes to bat for them. And I tell anybody, man, I just don't take any assignment. If the kid is being wrongfully treated, then I'm gonna show up. But if the kid ain't right, then that parent and that kid got to figure that out. I just don't go to war to defend wrong. I just don't do that. There is nobody. I don't give a damn where they come from, what they, how many degrees they got on the wall. Nothing. You don't have the resume I have. You have not done the work. So I mean, to teach a special ed kid, I clearly get that. I've dealt with special ed hundreds of times. You know, working at when you when you when you're virtually learning, special ed kids for real have a hard time with it. Moment, I wouldn't recommend anybody to send their children to school. It's not safe. Um, for example, the independent school district says that when the rating for COVID goes up to over 5%, that they would do virtual. But the rating is 9. It's almost double what you require to go virtual. So why am I going virtual, totally virtual, to save these kids from being exposed to some of the stuff that they have to be exposed to? If I get in another area, I'm gonna start this. I'm gonna redo this video because this is important to me. Um, put the word out, man. If you want a trustee that like to drink a beer every now and then, he smoke a cigarette every now and then, don't do no illegal drugs. Got a fly mouth, but I got all the knowledge in the world that may be able to help our babies in education. Guess who you need to be out there promoting and pushing? The reason education is failing is simple. People that are making decisions are disconnected from modern day education. People that are making the decisions have no connections. That's what it is. I've represented teachers thousands of times, and I never lose because I know what they know. Let's just put it like that. I know what they know, so you just can't tell me anything. I think we need the best representation that our kids and our teachers, our support staffs, um, administrators could possibly have. And what we have at the moment is subpar. Whether we want to accept that or not, that's no slight to anyone that sits on the school board or any candidate that decides to run. But our representation is suspect. It's what it is. It's suspect. And it's not in all actuality what it should be. So the myth that you have to be a teacher to sit on the school board, that's a lie. Oh, they understand. You got teachers up there now, and they can't seem to get it done. Well, you have another myth that you have to be an educator. They would be great if they were an educator, a former educator. Nah, I don't believe that one because, you got former educators, you got former teachers up there, you got people with a whole bunch of degrees, and nothing seems to work right because they don't have a passion for the decisions that they're making. They don't have a passion for it. They could care less how it goes. A lot of them make decisions in education based on whoever tells them to make that decision that gave them money for their campaign. So they're no better than a lot of these politicians out there. They're no better than them. When are we going to make a conscious decision where we don't bring race into it? We don't bring our emotions into it. Like me, if I don't get appointed, I'm not upset for one reason. I know you don't want me. You don't want me because I'm highly educated. You don't want me because I'm not corrupt. You don't want me because you can't fadangle me and force me to vote the way that you want me to vote. You don't want me because I would represent those teachers and those kids. You don't want a person like that. You want somebody that's going to come through the door and play the game. And that's all it boils down to. So I'm going to speak directly to my trustees right now. Wouldn't it be the perfect world if you chose the best candidate? Look at our resumes. Look at everything that we've done. I'm not going to sit here and go over everything that I've done in the last 4 years. Won't you do some open records requests to see what I've done? See the corruption that I exposed. Won't you see that? See the number of kids that I defended and folks lost their job because they physically assaulted children. Won't you look at that? Look at some of the programs that I was involved in, the Bridge the Gap program with the kids in the Houston Police Department, where I brought that into several schools. Look at my anti-gang awareness program that I floated around to multiple schools, and gang violence decreased on some of those campuses. Won't you look at that? Let's look at our resume. Let's look at the most qualified person for the job. The same thing you say you're going to do when it's time to pick a superintendent. Now, you may not like me because I'm talking to you trustees. You may not like me, and you don't like me because I don't play the game. The most precious commodity in education is the kids.